Alright. Yeah, how's it going, everybody? It's Sandwhichpants. If you're watching the stream currently, then you know that, and if you're not, then you don't. Well, I guess you would now. Alright. So, we're actually going to be learning a little something because I just watched this video on stream about Uganda's Museveni declared winner of presidential election. I was like, I wonder, is he a new president? No, this is like his sixth term or some shit. He's been in for like 4 decades, and so I was like, I was looking into Bobby Wine because he's talking about how it was rigged and there was fraud, and I was like, okay, my honest thoughts were, okay, is he kind of like Trump and this? So I looked into it, and no, he's not like Trump necessarily. There's actually been legitimate evidence that stuff was super bad. With shit, I don't have it on the screen anymore. It's probably back a few pages, but we're learning about this. But there was like, I'm pretty sure it was the 2006 election. There was instances of like brutality against voters of the opposition party and candidates and stuff. There was irregularities and voter fraud and stuff like that. So it was crazy. The Supreme Court even like it's like, yeah, this definitely is a thing that their Supreme Court was like, yeah, this is definitely a thing that happened, and they voted 4-3 to keep the guy who had a contested election in power. So that shit's crazy. So to learn about the national resistance movement, not to be confused with the national resistance movement of Iran. And this one's Swahili, and it's been the political party since 1986, and it's got a history. It was founded as a liberation movement that waged guerrilla warfare through its rebel wing National Resistance Army that toppled the government in 1986. According to the National Resistance Movement, it restored political stability, security, law and order, constitutionalism, and the rule of law to Uganda. So to understand this fully, I'm like, okay, well, the National Resistance Army, let me look into that. I'm also looking over here. It's Ugandan nationalism, economic liberalism, and social conservatism are its ideologies. So, factions, national conservatism, bleh. And then it used to have, socialism, Marxism, and Maoism in it, apparently. So, yeah. To understand this fully, because I don't know who any of these people are, I looked at the National Resistance Army, and it talks about how they were a rebel army that waged guerrilla warfare, commonly referred to as that waged a guerrilla war, commonly referred to as the Ugandan Bush War, or Luero War, against the government of Milton, Avote, and later that of Tito. Okay, I need to open a tab there. NRA was supported by Muammar Gaddafi, because of course it was. But I mean, this dude's fucking. He was a socialist. He was an Islamic socialist. NRA was formed in 1981 when Yoweri Museveni's Popular Resistance Army merged with ex-president Yusuf Lule's group, the Uganda Freedom Fighters. Museveni, then leader of the Uganda Patriotic Movement Party, alleged electoral fraud and declared an armed rebellion following the victory of Uganda People's Congress in the bitterly disputed 1980 general election. Museveni, who had guerrilla war experience with the Mozambican Liberation Front in Mozambique and his own Front for National Salvation, formed in Tanzania to fight Idi Amin, led the NRA to victory against Ugandan government troops, UNLA, in 1986. By that time, that the victorious NRA entered Kampala in 1986, about a quarter of its 16,000 combatants were Rwandan people from Rwanda, while Fred Rwigema, I don't know, I'm sorry if I butcher that, was its deputy commander. The NRA then became the National Army. Of course. And then, yeah, it goes on that the attacks largely shortly after the UNMA carried out a number of targeted attacks against civilians in the north of Uganda. The attacks largely targeted the Akoli people. Okay. And were in part seen as a form of revenge for Operation Bonanza, the scorched earth operation there that had been ordered by Milton during his presidency. Okay, so to fully understand what's going on, because they did some peace accord with the other group, and we need to know who all of these people are. So it mentions Idi Amin. Idi Amin Dada was a Ugandan military officer who served as president of Uganda from 1971 to 1979. Popularly known as the Butcher of Uganda, he is considered one of the most brutal despots in world history. Amin was born in Koboko to a Kakwa father and Lugbara mother, are a Central Sudanic ethnic group who live mainly in the West Nile region of Uganda. Okay, and Nilotic ethnic group, a part of northwestern Uganda, southwestern South Sudan, and northeastern Democratic Republic of Congo, particularly to the west of the White Nile River. Okay. In 1946, he joined the King's African Rifles of the British colonial army as a cook. He rose to the rank of lieutenant, taking part in British actions against Somali rebels in the Shifta War. Okay. Northern Frontier District of Kenya attempted to secede from Kenya to join Somalia. The Kenyan government named the conflict Shifta after the Somali word for bandit as part of a propaganda effort. Okay. And then the Mau Mau rebels in Kenya. Uganda gained independence from the United Kingdom in 1962, and Amin remained in the armed forces, rising to the position of major and being appointed commander of the Uganda Army in 1965. He became aware that Ugandan President Milton Avote was planning to arrest him for misappropriating army funds. Oh God. So he launched a military coup in 1971 and declared himself president. Okay. So, I guess we gotta start with Milton. Because he's the second president. Okay, 1966. Uganda's apparently had a really rough time. Apollo Milton Avote was a Ugandan political leader who led Uganda to independence in 1962 from British colonial administration. Okay, what were his... Okay, I guess they would have had ideology. Okay, whatever. Following the nation's independence, he served as Prime Minister of Uganda from 1962 to 1966 and President of Uganda from 1966 to 1971, then again from 1980 to 1985. He was overthrown by Idi Amin in 1971 but regained power in 1980, a year after Amin's 1979 overthrow. Okay, so back to this one. I'm trying to keep the timeline straight. During his years in power, Amin shifted from being a pro-Western ruler enjoying considerable support from Israel to being backed by Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, Zaire's Mobutu Sese Seko. I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. The Soviet Union and East Germany. Okay, who is... Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay, was he some sort of like socialist dude? I really don't even know. Born Joseph Desiree Mobutu. Changed his own name to Mobutu Sese Seko. I don't know. Mobutu claimed that his political ideology was neither left nor right, nor even center, but in practice he developed a regime that was rigidly authoritarian, even by African standards of his time. He attempted to purge the country of all colonial cultural influence through his program of national authenticity. Mobutu was the object of a pervasive cult of personality. During his reign, he amassed a large personal fortune through economic exploitation and corruption, leading some to call his rule a kleptocracy. Yeah, that sounds about right. He presided over a period of widespread human rights violations. Under his rule, the nation also suffered from uncontrollable inflation, a large debt, and massive currency devaluations. Mobutu received strong support, military, diplomatic, and economic, from the United States, France, and Belgium, who believed he was a strong opponent of communism in Francophone Africa. He also built his close ties with the governments of apartheid South Africa, Israel, and Greek military. Far right military. Okay, that ruled Greek. Wait, hold on. Sorry, I saw Georgia, and people were talking about George Soros earlier. So I was like, wait, what? Did George Soros have something to do with overthrowing this? Because if money flowed from somewhere, from Soros to somewhere, that flowed to somewhere, that flowed to somewhere, that went to helping stop far right people, that's the kind of logic that far right people will use. But if it openly stated that Soros did something with it, then So I had to go back and read that. But no, that's a name I cannot pronounce because I am a stupid American. From 1972 onwards, he was also supported by Mao, mainly due to his anti-Soviet stance. Huh. But also part of Mao's attempt to create a bloc of Afro-Asian nations led by him. The massive Chinese economic aid that flowed into Congo and Zaire gave him more flexibility in his dealings with Western governments, allowed him to identify as an anti-capitalist revolutionary, and enabled him to avoid going to the International Monetary Fund for assistance. By 1990, economic deterioration and unrest led to him to agree with opposition parties, but he used the army to thwart change until 1997, when rebel forces led by Laurent Desire Kabila, Congolese revolutionary politician who served as third president of the Democratic Republic of the Congo until his assassination. When rebel forces overran the country and forced him into exile, already suffering from advanced prostate cancer, he died 3 months later in Morocco. Notorious for corruption, nepotism, and embezzlement. Of between $4 billion and $15 billion. Shopping trips to Paris via the supersonic and expensive Concorde. Okay. This guy sounds based. We're gonna check him out as a different kind of segment. I'm sorry. I really don't. Okay. Early political movement. wrote pseudonymously on contemporary politics for Actualities African News, a magazine set up by a Belgian colonial. In 1956, he quit the army and became a full-time journalist, writing for the Leopoldville daily L'Avenir. 2 years later, he went to Belgium, covered 1958 World Exposition, and stayed to receive training in journalism. By this time, he met many of the young Congolese intellectuals who were challenging colonial rule. He became friendly with Patrice Lumumba and joined Lumumba's movement National Congolais. Is a political party. Oh, it's still a political party. Congolese National Movement. Okay. He became the personal aide. Several contemporaries indicate that Belgian intelligence had recruited Mobutu to be an informer to the government. Huh. During the 1960 talks in Brussels on Congolese independence, the U.S. Embassy held a reception for the Congolese delegation. Embassy staff were each assigned a list of delegation members to meet and discuss their impressions afterward. The ambassador noted one name kept coming up, but it wasn't on anyone's list because he wasn't an official delegation member. He was Lumumba's secretary, but everyone agreed that this was an extremely intelligent man. Very young, perhaps immature, but a man with great potential. Secretary of State to the presidency, huh? Following the general election, Lumumba was tasked with creating a government. He gave Mobutu the office of Secretary of State to the presidency. Mobutu held much influence in the final determination of the rest of the government. Wow. So much to learn, everybody. It's a good little segment. Because we got to go over this, finish going over. I already looked over this. Oh, wait. I need to finish reading about the... Oh, I guess to do that, I would need to open this link. The Ugandan Bush War, Ugandan Civil War, the Resistance War was a civil war fought. Ugandan National Liberation Army against a number of rebel groups, most importantly the National Resistance Army. From 1980 to 1986, the unpopular President Milton Obote was overthrown in a coup in 1971 by General Idi Amin, who established a military dictatorship. Amin was overthrown in 1979 following the Uganda-Tanzania War, but his loyalists started the Bush War by launching an insurgency in the West Nile region in 1980. Subsequent elections saw... Okay, so this was the... Okay. Wow. Uganda's capital in 1986. It subsequently established a new government with Museveni as president, while the UNLA fully disintegrated in March 1986. Avote and Akela went into exile. Okay. Despite the nominal end of the Civil War, numerous anti-NRA rebel factions and militias remained active and would continue to fight Museveni's government in the next decades. Okay. Wait. His second period of rule was marred by repression and the deaths of many civilians as a result of a civil war known as the Ugandan Bush War. Okay, so that was his fault. I don't want... In 1969, there was an attempt on Obote's life. In the aftermath of the attempt, all opposition political parties were banned, leaving Avote as an effectively absolute ruler. A state of emergency was enforced for much of the time, and many political opponents were jailed without trial for life. Obote's regime terrorized, harassed, and tortured people. His secret police, the General Service Unit, led by Obote's cousin, was responsible for many cruelties. In 1979-70, Avote published a series of pamphlets that were supposed to outline his political and economic policy. The Common Man's Charter was a summary of his approach to socialism, which became known as the Move to the Left. The government took over a 60% share in major private corporations and banks in the country in 1970. It took over. During Obote's regime, flagrant and widespread corruption emerged in the name of his version of socialism. Of course. And see, they even put it in the quotations, because it's not real socialism. Because the real socialism doesn't require the government to take over majority shares in private companies. No, it requires the workers owning them. Food shortages sent prices through the ceiling. Obote's persecution of Indian traders contributed to this rise in prices. In January 1971, Obote was overthrown by the army while on a visit to Singapore to attend a Commonwealth conference, and Amin became president. In the 2 years before the coup, Obote's relations with the West had become strained. Some have suggested that Western governments were at least aware of and may have aided the coup. Obote fled to Tanzania. The fall of Obote's regime was welcomed and celebrated by many Ugandans. In 1979, Idi Amin was ousted by Tanzanian forces aided by Ugandan exiles. By 1980, Uganda was governed by an interim presidential commission. At the time of the 1980 elections, the chairman of the commission was a close associate of Avote, Paulo Muwanga. Muwanga had briefly been the de facto president of Uganda from the 12th to the 20th of May of 1980, as one of the 3 presidents who served for short periods of time between Amin's ousting and the setting up of the Presidential Commission. The other 2 presidents were Yusuf Lule and Godfrey Benaissa. Benaissa. I don't know. Oh, he's a professor. The elections in 1980 were won by Obote's Uganda People's Congress Party. However, the UPC's opposition believed that the elections were rigged, which led to a guerrilla war by Yoweri Museveni's National Resistance Army and several other military groups. Obote held the additional title of Minister of Finance. Wow. In 1983, the Obote government launched Operation Bonanza, a military expedition that claimed tens of thousands of lives and displaced a significant portion of the population. The brunt of the blame for this massacre was placed on the people of northern Uganda for supporting the actions of the Prime Minister, which increased the existing regional tensions in the country. It has been estimated that approximately 100,000 to 500,000 people died as a result of fighting between Obote's Ugandan National Liberation Army and the guerrillas. On the 27th of July 1985, Avote was deposed again. As in 1971, he was overthrown by his own army commanders in a military coup d'etat. This time the commanders were Brigadier Basilio Olara Okello and General Tito Okello. I've got Tito right here. He joined the King's African Rifles in 1940 and served in the East African campaign of World War II. Ooh, really? Okay, so he fought fascists because Britain told them to, but as a career military officer, he had a variety of assignments. Okello was one of the commanders in the coalition between Tanzania People's Defense Force and the Uganda National Liberation Army, and the coalition between them. who removed Idi Amin from power in 1979. Oh, okay. He was selected to be the commander of the Ugandan National Liberation Army from 1980 to 1985. In July 1985, together with Bazila Alara Okello, Tito staged the coup d'etat that ousted President Milton Avote. He ruled as president for 6 months until he was overthrown by the National Resistance Army operating under the leadership of the current president, Yoweri Museveni. He went into exile in Kenya after he was ousted, so he's... Oh yeah, he died in 1996, because he was old, age 81. How old is Museveni? Huh. Oh, of course. The Lord's Resistance Army, also known as the Lord's Resistance Movement, is a rebel group and heterodox Christian group which operates in northern Uganda, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic and the Democratic Republic of Congo. They're usually known for kidnapping teenagers and young people to use as prospective soldiers or sex slaves, but this guy was an oddity because he's 70 when he was taken. Yeah, because that's fucking normal. When a group is known for kidnapping. Jesus Christ. Okay, so we read about Mobutu got fucking overthrown. But yeah. On the 5th of July 1960, soldiers of the Force Publique stationed at Camp Leopold II in Leopoldville, dissatisfied with their all-white leadership and working conditions, mutinied. The revolt spread across the region in the following days. Mobutu assisted other officials in negotiating with the mutineers to secure the release of the officers and their families. On the 8th of July, the full Council of Ministers convened in an extraordinary session under the chairmanship of President Joseph Kasavubu at Camp Leopold II to address the task of Africanizing the garrison. After allowing the election of the new commandant for the garrison, the ministers debated over who would make a suitable army chief of staff. The two main candidates for the post were Maurice Mpalo and Mobutu. Who is this? Congolese politician who served in the 1960. Okay. The former had shown some influence over the mutinying troops, but Kasavubu and the Bakongo ministers feared that he would enact a coup d'etat if he were given power. Oh god, I wonder why. The latter was perceived as calmer and more thoughtful. Wait, what? Mobutu instead of Maurice? Oh, one moment. That was Sam, letting me know that he got the server on. I keep trying to hint that they need to, like, be watching the stream. But I get it. They don't necessarily have to. At least I know one of them does. Somebody cares. Alright, so, yeah, they were worried that, hold on. They were worried that the former had shown some influence over the mutinying troops, but they were worried that he would cause a coup if given power. This guy. The letter was perceived as calmer and more thoughtful. Lumumba saw Mpolo as courageous, but favored Mobutu's prudence. As the discussions continued, the cabinet began to divide according to who they preferred to serve as chief of staff. Lumumba wanted to keep both men in his government and wished to avoid upsetting one of their camps of supporters. In the end, Mobutu was given the role and awarded the rank of colonel. The following day, government delegations left the capital to oversee Africanization of the army. Mobutu was sent to Equateur. Congo Free State. Jesus. How much shit has the Congo been through? That's what all this has been, is about the Congo. I've been recording this for 31 minutes. I'm gonna have to cut out a little bit of this video. But, jeez. Okay. This is a long one. So essentially, he did a coup, took over shit, got overthrown. By this guy. Oh, what? Okay, so I have to check that out. It's all been about the history, interactions of the Congo, Uganda, and Tanzania. And I guess it's a bunch of shit going on in here, because yeah, Tanzania and Rwanda and Mozambique and Jesus. Okay. So we know what this is about, and the National Resistance Movement is a socially conservative shit. It's not even that long of a thing. It's been led by Museveni since he was able to achieve power in 1986. And it's got nationalism, Ugandan nationalism, not that that matters, economic liberalism, and social conservatism, and it had a basis with its revolutionary spirit and, Maoism. So that's a thing. This guy, okay. He was a Congolese revolutionary politician. He served as third president of the Democratic Republic of Congo when he overthrew Mobutu, this guy that we were reading about just a second ago. Until his assassination, he was succeeded 8 days later by his 29-year-old son Joseph. Dope. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily good, because it was like a hereditary thing, but if he got voted in, I don't know. If he got voted in, good, and if he just got put in. Shortly after the Congo achieved independence in 1960, Katanga seceded under the leadership of Moise Tshombe. Congolese businessman and politician. He's the Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Kabila organized the Baluba Huh, okay. In the anti-secessionist rebellion in Manono? Okay. In September 1962, a new province, North Katanga, was established. He became a member of the Provincial Assembly. He served as Chief of Cabinet for the Minister of Information, Ferdinand Timba. In September 1963, he and other young members of the Assembly were forced to resign, facing allegations of communist sympathies. Okay, cool. Based. Kabila established himself as a supporter of hardline Lumumbist Prosper. I don't know what this would mean. Mwamba Yunga? I don't know. When the Lumumbists formed the... Don't know what this is. National Council of Liberation. He was sent by whom? The material near this tag may use weasel words or too vague attribution. Okay, he was sent apparently to eastern Congo to help organize a revolution, in particular in the Kivu and northern Katanga provinces. This revolution was part of the larger Simba rebellions. What? Holy shit, okay. Happening in the provinces at the time. In 1965, Kabila set up a cross-border rebel operation from Kigoma, Tanzania, across Lake Tanganyika? I don't know. Okay. Che Guevara assisted Kabila for a short time in 1965. Guevara had appeared in the Congo with approximately 100 men who planned to bring about a Cuban-style revolution. Guevara judged Kabila, then 26, as not the man of the hour he had alluded to, being too distracted. This, in Guevara's opinion, accounted for Kabila showing up days late at a time to provide supplies, aid, or backup to Guevara's men. The lack of cooperation between Kabila and Guevara contributed to the suppression of the revolt that same year. In Guevara's view of all the people he met during his campaign in Congo, only Kabila had genuine qualities of a mass leader, but Guevara castigated Kabila for a lack of revolutionary seriousness. After the failure of the revolution, Kabila turned to smuggling gold and timber on Lake Tanganyika. He also ran a bar and brothel in Tanzania. In 1967, Kabila and his remnant of supporters moved their operation to the mountainous Fizi Baraka area of South Kivu in the Congo, and founded the People's Revolutionary Party with the support of the People's Republic of China. The PRP created a secessionist Marxist state in South Kivu province. Okay. The PRP state came to an end in 1988 when Kabila disappeared and was widely believed to be dead. While in Kampala, Kabila reportedly met Museveni, the future president of Uganda. Museveni and former Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere later introduced Kabila to Paul Kagame, who would become president of Rwanda. These personal contacts became vital in the mid-1990s when Uganda and Rwanda sought a Congolese face for their intervention in Zaire. First Congo War. As Rwandan Hutu refugees fled to Congo, then Zaire after the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, refugee camps along the Zaire-Rwanda border became militarized, with Hutu militia vowing to retake power in Rwanda. The Kigali regime considered these militias as a security threat and was seeking a way to dismantle those refugee camps. After Kigali had expressed its security concerns to Kinshasa, requesting the refugee camps get moved further inside the country, and Kinshasa ignored these concerns. Kigali believed that only military option could solve the issue. However, a military operation inside Zaire would be seen as an invasion by the internal community, which the plan to put in place a rebellion that would serve as the cover. The Alliance of Democratic Forces, the Liberation of Congo, was born with Rwanda's blessing and with Kabila as its spokesperson. By mid-1997, the ADFL had almost completely overrun the country and the remains of Mobutu's army. Only the country's decrepit infrastructure slowed Kabila's forces down. In many areas, the only means of transit were irregularly used dirt paths. Following failed peace talks held on the board of the South African ship SAS Utenekwa, I don't know. Utenekwa? I have no idea how you pronounce that. I'm sorry. Mobutu fled into exile on 16th of May. Okay. The next day from his base in Lubumbashi, Kabila declared victory and installed himself as president. Kabila suspended the constitution and changed the name of the country from Zaire to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the country's official name from 1964 to 1971. He made his grand entrance into Kinshasa on 20th of May and was sworn in on the 31st of May, officially commencing his tenure as president. Kabila had been a committed Marxist, but his policies at this point were social democratic. He declared that elections would not be held for 2 years, since it would take him at least that long to restore order. While some in the West hailed Kabila as representing a new breed of African leadership, critics charged that Kabila's policies differed little from his predecessors, being characterized by authoritarianism, corruption, and human rights abuses, of course, because that's what the West fucking does anytime somebody does anything. As early as late 1997, Kabila was being denounced as another Mobutu. Kabila was also accused of trying to set up a personality cult. Mobutu's former Minister of Information, Dominique Sakombi Inongo, was retained by Kabila. He branded Kabila as the Mzee and created posters reading, "Here's the man we needed," appeared all over the country. By 1998, Kabila's former allies in Uganda and Rwanda had turned against him and backed a new rebellion of the Rally for Congolese Democracy, the Second Congo War. Kabila found new allies in Angola. Okay. Namibia and Zimbabwe, and managed to hold on in the south and west of the country, and by July 1999, peace talks led to the withdrawal of most foreign forces. Kabila was shot and killed in his office on the 16th of January 2001. The DRC's authorities managed to keep power despite Kabila's assassination. The exact circumstances are still disputed. Kabila reportedly died on the spot, according to DRC's then Health Minister Leonard Mashako Mamba, who was in the next door office when Kabila was shot and arrived immediately after the assassination. The government claimed that Kabila was still alive, however, when he was flown to a hospital in Zimbabwe after he was shot, so that DRC authorities couldn't organize the 10th secession. The Congolese government announced that he had died of his wounds on the 18th of January. 1 week later, his body was returned to Congo for a state funeral, and his son, Joseph, became president 10 days later. By doing so, DRC officials were accomplishing the verbal testimony of the deceased president. Then Justice Minister Mwenze Kongolo and Kabila's aide-de-camp, Eddie Kapin, reported that Kabila had told them that his son Joseph, then number 2 of the army, should take over if he were to die in office. The investigation into Kabila's assassination led to 135 people, including 4 children, being tried before a special military tribunal. The alleged ringleader, Colonel Eddie Kapin, one of Kabila's cousins, and 25 others were sentenced to death in January 2003, but not executed. Of the other defendants, 64 were jailed with sentences from 6 months to life, and 45 were exonerated. Some individuals were also accused of being involved in a plot to overthrow his son. Among them was Kabila's special advisor, Emmanuel Dungia, former ambassador to South Africa. Many people believe the trial was flawed and the convicted defendants innocent. Alright. And I think I will cover... Actually, no, I need to cover this too. Oh my god. Alright, 1 second. Alright. The Simba Rebellion of 1963-1965, also known as the Oriental Revolt, was a rebellion in the Democratic Republic of the Congo which took place within the wider context of the Congo crisis and the Cold War. The rebellion, located in the east of the country, was led by the followers of Patrice Lumumba, who had been ousted from power in 1960 by Joseph Kasavubu and Joseph Desiré Mobutu. And subsequently killed in January 1961 in Katanga. The rebellion was contemporaneous with the Kwilu Rebellion, led by the fellow Lumumbist Pierre Mulele in central Congo. The Simba rebels were initially successful and captured much of eastern Congo, proclaiming a People's Republic at Stanleyville. Stanleyville. That's such a white-ass name. Fucking white people. However, the insurgency suffered from a lack of organization and coherence, as well as tensions between the rebel leadership and its internal allies of the Eastern Bloc. When the Congolese government launched a number of major counter-offensives from late 1964, spearheaded by battle-hardened mercenaries and backed by Western powers, the rebels suffered several major defeats and disintegrated. By November 1965, the Simba Rebellion was effectively defeated. The holdouts of the rebels continued their insurgency until the 1990s. The cause of the Simba Rebellion should be viewed as part of a wider struggle for power within the Republic of Congo following independence from Belgium on the 30th of June 1960, as well as within the context of the Cold War interventions in Africa by the West and the Soviet Union. The rebellion can be immediately traced back to assassinations of the first Prime Minister of Congo, Patrice Lumumba, in 1961. Political infighting and intrigue followed, resulting in the ascendancy of the hard nationalists in Kinshasa and at the expense of politicians who had supported Lumumba, such as Antoine Gizenga. Christophe Gbagné, and Gaston. In 1961, this change in power led Antoine Gizenga to declare the creation of a rebel government in Stanleyville. This new state, dubbed the Free Republic of Congo, received support from the Soviet Union and China as they positioned themselves as being socialists opposed to American intervention in the Congo and involvement in the death of Lumumba, although, as with Lumumba, there is some dispute over the true political inclinations of the Lumumbists. However, in 1961, Gizenga dissolved the government in Stanleyville with the intention of taking part in the United Nations-sponsored talks at Lovanium University. These talks ultimately did not deliver the Lumumbist government that had been intended. Gizenga was arrested and imprisoned on Balubemba, and many of the Lumumbists went into exile. It was in exile that the rebellion began to take shape. In 1963, the Council of National Liberation was founded by Gbagné and Somiro in Brazzaville, capital of the neighboring Republic of the Congo. However, whilst these plans for rebellions were being developed in exile, Pierre Mulele returned from his training in China to launch a revolution in his native province of Kwilu in 1963. Mulele proved to be a capable leader and scored a number of early successes, although these would remain localized to Kwilu. With the country again seeming to be in open rebellion of the government in Kinshasa, the CNL launched its rebellion in their political heartland of eastern Congo. So it's just a massive power struggle going on over decades in the Congo. Uganda's forces were organized as the Armée Populaire de Libération, though were generally nicknamed Simbas, meaning a lion or a big lion in Swahili. Yep. They were recruited from ANC mutineers, tribesmen, and youth militants. In general, the People's Liberation Army, was divided into regular units, which were organized like the ANC, namely, garrison units and operation units, and units which were more akin to irregular militias. Although they were on average well motivated, the Simbas lacked discipline, and their command as well as control were often chaotic. Yep. Okay. The majority of the Simbas were young men and teens, although children were not unheard of in the conflict. The rebels were led by Gaston Simula and Christophe Gabinier, who had been members of Gazinga's PSA, and Laurent Desire Kabila, who had been a member of the Lumumba assigned Pulabakat. I don't know how, Because of the range of political beliefs amongst the Simba rebels, attributing an ideology to the rebellion is very complex. Whilst the leaders claimed to be influenced by Chinese Maoist ideas, the Cuban military advisor Che Guevara wrote that the majority of the fighters did not hold these views. The fighters also practiced a system of traditional beliefs, but held that correct behavior and the regular reapplying of dawa, water ritually applied by a medicine man, would leave the fighters impervious to bullets. Okay. No. As the Kwilu rebellion spread and escalated, Somyolot obtained the support of the government of Burundi in recruiting thousands of troops along the Burundi-Congolese border. With these forces, he invaded South Kivu in late 1963. After taking control of most of the province, Somyolot's army overran the last local government's holdout in Uvira on the 15th of May 1964, followed by Fizi shortly after. Pro-Simba forces successfully revolted in the important harbor town of Albertville in late May, capturing Jason Sindwe, president of North Katanga province. On the 30th of May 1964, a small ANC detachment led by Louis Bobozo retook the town, rescuing Sindwe and killing about 250 rebels. The government troops soon alienated the locals due to their brutal behavior. When another rebellion broke out in the town on 19th of June 1964, Somyolot's forces exploited the resulting chaos and captured Albertville. The government forces fled, though left Sindwe behind. He was subsequently murdered by Simba rebels in unclear circumstances. Meanwhile, Gabinier and Olenga rose in revolt in northeastern Congo, quickly expanding their army and territories. By June 1964, they held North Kivu and southern Oriental Province. They did not coordinate their operations with Somyolot, who distrusted Gabinier. A third rebel force instead of Somyolot. A third rebel force, independent of Somyolot, Gabinier, and Olenga, rebelled in North Katanga in early June. These insurgents considered themselves true communists and were led by Kabila and Masingo. They had no real connection to the other Simba factions. Kabila and Masingo's troops conquered the entire western shore of including Moba by late June. They then advanced into the province of Maniema and captured its strategically important capital, Kindu, on the 22nd of July. The local Army Nationale Congolese garrison reacted with brutal counterinsurgency actions that failed to defeat the Simbas, but alienated the population of the eastern provinces. Furthermore, the Simba rebels often managed to intimidate well-equipped ANC units into retreating or defecting without a fight, thereby capturing much-needed weaponry for the insurgency. Jesus fuck. Alright, so as you can see, there's a lot here. And what you can essentially take away from this is that there's been massive amounts of power struggles in that area of Africa, which actually kind of ripples throughout a large portion of Africa, especially with support being put in from Gaddafi supporting one dude for a short period until he realized what he was about. Then he pulled support, if I remember reading that correctly, and then other people had put in support, and the Western government's putting in support and pulling support and fueling the fire and keeping the place under constant infighting. It's become a thing that's been keeping that area of yeah, look at this. This is a big fucking area. So yeah, there's a lot there. So that is going to be the Rebellions in Africa section that I have recorded. So if